Did you know one Kenyan lawyer tried to take Jesus Christ to court and open Jesus' murder case? Imagine you're a lawyer. You've handled divorce cases, you've handled land disputes, you've handled criminal cases. Then one morning you wake up and say, "Today, I'm taking Jesus Christ to court." No, this is not the beginning of a Kenyan comedy film. A Kenyan lawyer and the former judiciary spokesman named Dola Indidis made international headlines after attempting to challenge the trial and crucifixion of Jesus Christ in Kenya High Court in 2007 as friend of Jesus.
But the way he died was not lawful. I would have preferred a situation where he could have been killed by heathens, the way Stephen was killed. But by Pontius Pilate putting the seal and signature on the sentence, then he legalized it. It is the illegality which I went to challenge.
Yes, Jesus Christ, Jesus the man whose crucifixion happened approximately 2,000 years ago, and suddenly the legal department of heaven had a problem. His argument, part 1, the case. Dola argued that Jesus had been wrongfully tried and convicted. His position was essentially that the proceedings leading to Jesus' crucifixion were unlawful and unjust. And honestly, you have to admire the confidence. Most lawyers look at a case file and ask, "Where are the witnesses?" Dola apparently looked at history and said, "Where is the appeal form?"
Jesus should have been put on trial, but he was not put on trial.
Part 2, but why Jesus? According to reports, Indidis argued that Jesus' trial involved serious problems with the way justice was administered. He reportedly pointed to issues including judicial misconduct, abuse of authority, prejudice, and an improper conviction, and the person at the center of his argument, Pontius Pilate. Yes, Pilate, the Roman governor who, according to the gospel accounts, presided over Jesus' case.
Pontius Pilate never entered any sensible judgment. You cannot say an accused is guilty and then you acquit him. The same way you cannot say he is innocent and then you convict him. You can't. You cannot breathe hot and cold in the same judgment. You can't.
Imagine receiving a legal notice after nearly 2,000 years. Dear Mr. Pontius Pilate, at that point, even your ancestors are asking, what did you do? Part 3, the evidence. Now here's where this story gets even more interesting. What evidence could possibly be presented for an event that happened roughly 2,000 years ago? Dola reportedly pointed to the Bible and historical accounts concerning Jesus' trial and execution. Basically, he was saying, the evidence is already there. Read the record.
He found him guilty, telling them not to pay taxes to the emperor.
Imagine being the opposing lawyer. You stand up and say, "Your Honor, my learned friend is relying on a book that was written thousands of years ago." And the other lawyer responds, "Exactly, that's the evidence." Courtroom drama levels. Biblical, literally.
So I'm dealing with the legal aspect of it, that the case of Jesus has not been set aside. The guilty part, the guilty sentence that was slapped upon him still remains, and it will remain until it is set aside. And I want it to be set aside because he was not guilty. And even Jesus himself told Pilate that he had no jurisdiction to hear him. And even Pilate's wife told him that there is coming a man before you. He is a holy man. Have nothing to do with him. So it is his innocence that we are fighting for legal purposes.
Part 4, the jurisdiction problem. But there was one tiny problem, actually a huge problem, jurisdiction. You see, courts have limits. A Kenyan court cannot simply wake up one morning and say, "Today we shall investigate what happened in Jerusalem approximately 2,000 years ago." That's not quite how the legal system works.
After studying about the case for 14 years, That's when we filed it initially before the High Court here in Nairobi. Initially, it was a jurisdictional query. I went before Justice Alwach, as she then was. And later, after the preliminaries, we decided that the matter be withdrawn because this court would not have jurisdiction. That is the time when I withdrew it from the High Court of Kenya.
Imagine the judge looking at the file. Case, Jesus Christ versus Pontius Pilate. Date of incident, approximately 2,000 years ago. Location, Jerusalem. Defendant, Pontius Pilate. King Herod, Emperor Tiberius, modern Italy and modern Israel. Current status, deceased witnesses, also deceased. Court, High Court. The judge, we have a small jurisdictional issue. The High Court of Kenya dismissed the suit for lack of jurisdiction.
I withdrew it from the High Court of Kenya and filed it in the Hague, particularly in the ICJ. The ICC would have limitation because it cannot handle offenses it cannot handle cases which occurred before it was instituted. But ICJ has no limitation. That is why we have gone there.
Part 5, the International Court of Justice. Dola reportedly sought to take the matter beyond Kenya. In 2013, he went to the International Court of Justice in The Hague. And this is where you really have to appreciate the ambition. Most people see a complicated problem and say, maybe we should leave it alone. A lawyer sees it and says, let's escalate from Jerusalem to Kenya to The Hague. This case was preparing for an international tour. The UN's highest court ultimately declined to hear the case, explaining they only hear disputes submitted directly by sovereign states, leaving this 2,000-year-old verdict firmly in the history books.
The ICC would have limitation because it cannot handle offenses it cannot handle cases which occurred before it was instituted. But ICJ has no limitation.
Part 6. What was he actually trying to achieve? Now, before we laugh too much, there was a serious argument behind the unusual case. Dola wasn't trying to prove that Jesus was guilty. Quite the opposite. He argued that Jesus was innocent and had been unjustly convicted.
Jesus came here on earth as a human being. He was son of Joseph and Mary, Jesus of Nazareth. And now when he died, he was not given an opportunity to be heard, and no one speaks for him.
His aim was reportedly to challenge the legality of the process that led to Jesus' death. In other words, he wasn't saying, Jesus, you have a case to answer. He was saying, Jesus, you need a lawyer. And apparently, he had volunteered.
Because it is ex parte, and because we only want a declaratory judgment, I do not see a reason why we are not going to succeed. So far, there is a lot of response worldwide. Most people support me. There are only a few people who are against.
Part 7. The big question. But here's the question. Can someone legally reopen a case from 2,000 years ago? In practical terms, that's where the whole idea becomes almost impossible. Modern courts operate within specific jurisdictions. They require legally recognized parties, applicable laws, admissible evidence, and a court with authority over the matter. And there is another rather obvious issue. The people involved have been dead for centuries. Pontius Pilate, King Herod, Emperor Tiberius. So even if the court wanted to call witnesses, good luck finding them. Next witness, please. Unfortunately, Your Honor, he died around AD 30. Next. Same problem.
The government for whom they acted still is answerable for their work. Pontius Pilate was working under the government of Rome, which was headed by Caesar.
Part 8. Did the court actually put Jesus on trial? Now let's clear up something important. Despite how viral this story became, this was not a normal modern court trial in which Jesus was literally summoned before a Kenyan judge. The story concerns Dola's reported legal efforts and arguments challenging the historical treatment of Jesus. And the courts did not simply open a courtroom and begin proceedings against Pontius Pilate. So if someone tells you, Kenya officially reopened Jesus' murder case, don't believe everything you see on the internet. The real story is already strange enough. We don't need to add extra seasoning. Part 9, Why this story went viral. The story exploded internationally because it combined three things people cannot resist: Kenya, law, and Jesus Christ. Put those three together and the internet said, wait, what? International media picked up the story, and Dola Indidis became known around the world for one of the most unusual legal ideas imaginable. And honestly, if your name becomes famous because people are saying that Kenyan lawyer wanted to take Jesus to court, you've definitely made the news. But beneath all the jokes, there is something fascinating about this story. For nearly 2,000 years, people have debated the trial, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Historians study it, theologians debate it, Christians believe it, skeptics question it, and one Kenyan lawyer decided to approach the story from an entirely different direction, through the law. Whether you agree with his approach or not, it raises a fascinating question. If you could take one historical injustice back to court, which one would you choose? And more importantly, would you have the courage to challenge it? Because sometimes the strangest questions are the ones that make us think twice and become winners. And that was your Did You Know on Winverse, a universe of winners where we see beyond the surface. Follow for more.